Hello everyone, how are you doing? So I was pretty hesitant on doing a review on this game because I think the series gets a lot of hate, but whatever, no fear. Welcome to my Sword Art Online Fatal Bullet review. This is the 4th SAO game to be released in the West, not counting the mobile games and the Excel World crossover. Let's go over a bit of my experiences with the SAO universe before I get into the review. I've watched all the anime episodes, the extra episode, and the movie. I own all the games, but I've only played Re-Hollow Fragments before Fatal Bullet, so yep, I'm a fan of the series. If you're someone who hates SAO, whether it's mob mentality or because you think SAO is a garbage series, then you should stop right now since you'll probably end up hating this game. I think you should also skip this game if you're not familiar with the SAO series, since not much is really done to catch you up with the current statuses of the characters. But instead of just leaving, you should go and check out my other videos because, you know, they're great. Otherwise, for the people who are interested in how the game handles, or if you just like the sound of my voice, let's take a look at what Sword Art Online Fatal Bullet has to offer. When coming into an SAO game, I think it's best not to expect an amazing story. Keep the bar low and you'll make it through to the end just fine. That doesn't mean I didn't like the story of Fatal Bullet though. The story itself is very SAO-esque, meaning the story is very linear with very little twists and depth. If you like SAO storytelling, then you'll probably end up liking Fatal Bullet's story. It does what the previous games before it did. It takes a setting from the anime and gives it its own spin with a few overlapping moments. So while the story will introduce new characters and events, it still really helps to have background on the previous games and even the anime or light novels. The main character in Fatal Bullet is you, and not Kirito like the previous games. I really like this because it lets me connect better to the other characters since it's my character that is the focus. You start the game off as a newbie in a new game called Gun Gale Online because your childhood friend persuaded you to play with her. The story progresses how you would expect when someone just starts an MMO. You party together, level up, and complete content. As you progress, you meet the familiar inhabitants of the SAO world along with some new characters unique to Fatal Bullet. I liked all the new characters and found their backgrounds and direction to be interesting. Very early on, a majority of the cast is unlocked and are able to join your party. These characters include the main cast from SAO and all the extra characters from the previous game, with the exception of 7, who was excluded for some reason. These guys will mostly take on the supporting role while the new characters are the main focus. While there are some character development when playing through the main story, I find most of the meaningful interactions to come from personal cutscenes between you and the characters. These cutscenes are unlocked by raising your affection level with them, and in order to do that, you have to be in a party with them. This gives you a reason to use every character, although when it comes down to it, I'd rather not be forced to use characters I don't like in order to see those extra cutscenes. Fortunately, it's not hard soloing the game, so your party composition doesn't really matter too much. With all that being said, nothing is done to help the players that are completely new to the series catch up. While all the extra backstory is not really needed to see what kind of person a character is or follow the main story, it's more difficult to connect to a character when a player doesn't learn all that they should. I find the story to be a very small part of the game, so having a very light and simple story wouldn't automatically make this game a bad game. What makes or break this game is gonna be the gameplay. The first thing to notice is the combat is much different than previous games in the series. The main weapons in Fatal Bullet are guns, so gameplay is gonna be mostly a third-person shooter with some action mixed in between. Players will also have numerous skills, gadgets, and the ability to use a sword in addition to using a gun. Combat was enjoyable and felt very good. Shooting things was fun, hitting their weak points was rewarding, using a sword was fun, and the action is fast-paced. Swords were my main weapon of choice in PvE because there were more movement options, the skills were more interesting, and I found it to be much more fun doing combos than running and gunning. That said, I think guns are the best weapons since they have higher damage potential and it's easier to zone enemies. Combat is not very hard to pick up, but there can be some awkward moments with the controls when using a sword. Unlike guns, there is no aim assist when using a sword. What this means is that it's actually a little weird tracking your enemies during combos. This was especially an issue with special attacks, where you would miss an enemy if it moves or your attacks move you too forward, thus mispositioning you. But on the other hand, gameplay really did feel great. However, there were still a couple of issues that dampened the positive gameplay experience. The lack of variety in enemies and levels made gameplay feel repetitive very fast. There are 4 regions you can explore that are of decent size: a ruin, a desert, a deserted city, and a forest, which actually looks great. But when you're actually spending hours at a time in these areas and facing the same enemies across multiple areas, the sense of awe will start to go away. And within each of these regions there will be explorable dungeons as well, which suffer from the same issues. These dungeons use the same set of textures, so there aren't any variety among them besides the layout. And the same enemies live inside these dungeons, no matter which region it's in. The boss fights were enjoyable and varied, but again start to become repetitive. Once you reach the last few areas, you'll fight the same reskinned boss quite a few times. In the whole game, you'll probably see about 30 unique enemies, which, considering how long it takes to complete this game, is not a lot. All this coupled with having a limited moveset caused gameplay to steadily become stale. Being able to defeat enemies quickly would have improved the pacing of combat and helped relieve my previous complaints, but good equipment wasn't exactly easy to come by, and neither were the upgrades if you didn't grind for the materials. But grinding is boring and feeds into that stale gameplay cycle. I'm not a person that likes to grind in a non-MMO setting, so I refuse to do it. That means my RNG, which is terrible by the way, will determine how well I will be equipped as I progress through the story. I ended up not changing my weapon from the beginning of the game until about halfway, and it started to take longer and longer to take down enemies. If you're someone who doesn't mind grinding or likes to take the time to thoroughly explore their environment, then, along with some good RNG, you'll probably be able to find stronger weapons and be able to kill enemies faster. There was definitely a correlation between my ability to kill enemies quickly and the amount of fun I was having. Once my kill pacing started to drop, so did my enjoyment of the game. But once it went back up, it started to feel better because the pacing improved. What makes up for this though is that once you find that perfect weapon drop with stats you want, you can upgrade it to become very powerful. Unfortunately, accessories can't be enhanced, which was quite a letdown, but the weapon enhancement system was actually an interesting one. Besides upgrading the weapon to increase its raw power, the important mechanic is the weapon passives and its customization options. When gears drop, they come with a certain number of bonus passives, with rarer gear having more passives. The passives on weapon will strengthen your character by providing bonus damage, bonus stats, and other buffs. The passives on armor will have similar passives as weapons, but will be defense traits. Of course, there's much more that I could get into, but won't because it would take too long. At most, half of the passives can be changed, but all passives can be enhanced by combining it with another weapon that has the passives you want. This gives you the option of creating a very godly weapon for whatever situation may come up, like having a weapon geared for PvP while having another weapon geared for PvE. Granted, this will take a lot of grinding, but the potential is there. Customization doesn't stop at weapons though. This game is decent with the amount of character and cosmetic customization, but is nothing that extravagant. Cosmetic customization is pretty straightforward and simple. When creating your avatar, there are a good number of options to customize your character, such as height and size of various body parts. It doesn't offer the huge customization options of games like Black Desert Online or even Final Fantasy 15 Comrades, but it was sufficient. My only complaint is that there isn't an option for butt size, but oh well, life goes on. In-game, players will be able to create costumes, which only changes the appearance of the character and does not give any additional stats. However, a player can equip up to 2 accessories, which will appear on the character and give them bonus stats. Players are able to change the colors of their costumes, accessories, and guns, although these options are pretty limited in scope. In terms of a character's build, Fatal Bullet's stat customization is pretty standard. When a character levels up, they gain what's called CP points, which are used to increase one of 6 stats: strength, vitality, intelligence, agility, dexterity, and luck. The more of a stat a character has, the more CP points it takes to increase that stat. Stats do a variety of different things, such as increasing drop rates, increasing weight capacity, increasing move speed, and so on. Skills, gadgets, and guns also require a certain amount of stats to learn or use. So in addition to considering each stat's individual benefit, it's also important to consider what you want to incorporate in your build and adjust accordingly. With the amount of character and weapon customization options in Fatal Bullet, I can see a lot of time being spent making that ridiculously strong character. But alas, there is no reason to, besides bragging rights. The only reason I think anyone would spend the time grinding is for online play, but that mode is quickly dying. In Fatal Bullet, there are 2 online game modes, PvP and Co-op PvE. It's pretty difficult finding a room in PvP, and Co-op isn't doing much better. The only way to increase your chances of finding a room is to expand the search to all regions, instead of restricting it to the region you're living in, which will cause you to experience a lot of laggy battles. From my experience, it's much easier creating a room and having people join you than finding a room. Co-op was fun, and so was PvP when I wasn't getting my butt kicked. PvP mode is divided into 2 separate modes, Hero and Avatar. with each having a rank and casual play. The only difference between hero and avatar mode is that in avatar mode, you use the actual avatar you worked so hard to progress, while hero mode lets you select a member of the SAO cast with everyone's level set to 150. Both modes play the same, with each team having a max of 4 players tasked with dealing as much damage to the boss as possible. The players are also able to kill members of the opposing team, which causes some fun and hectic gameplay. PvP was the most enjoyable part of Fatal Bullet when I could actually find a 3v3 or 4v4 hero match. Playing against other players is much more fun due to the skill difference and their unpredictability when compared to playing against an AI with a set attack pattern. With that said, PvP has some clear balance issues, with dual SMGs being the best in my opinion. They have a very high rate of fire and deal a lot of damage very quickly. It was very difficult taking down a player who knew what they were doing, and even more so when they were using an SMG. Co-op mode is the same as PvP mode, where you just kill the boss but with everyone working together instead of being divided, and you get items at the end. Co-op was fun, but it was more useful for grinding materials quickly since bosses were very easy to kill and battles last maybe a minute at most if you knew what you were doing. Which I did. This mode can also be played solo, which is cool, so even if online does die out, at least you can continue playing this mode by yourself. It's really quite unfortunate players don't use online modes in anime-style RPGs, as this could have been one of the selling points. So overall, Sword Art Online Fatal Bullet is an adequate game with some good qualities, but it's not a game that leaves a lasting impression. There isn't a dub if that's your thing, the story is okay, the music is okay, and the enemies and levels are repetitive. But the game looks good since it's made in Unreal 4, and combat gameplay felt great and was enjoyable, but could have used some tiny improvements. Like previous SAO games, Fatal Bullet is clearly marketed to the SAO fanbase, and doesn't give much reason for new players to play. I think fans of SAO will enjoy this game, especially if you like the GGO arc. If you're looking for an anime-style third-person shooter, then I don't know of any games that come close to what Fatal Bullet has to offer. But if you have a backlog of more distinguished JRPGs to play, it wouldn't be a bad idea to hold off on Fatal Bullet until you wanted to scratch that SAO itch, especially considering that the best part of the game, which would have been the online mode, will probably be dead sometime soon. So that's my take on Sword Art Online Fatal Bullet. Feel free to leave your thoughts on the game as well, or if you want to talk about the anime, whether you hate it or love it, share your thoughts. Thank you guys for watching. Until next time, this is JRPG Fanatic heading out.